at least by midday, I would desire that at least by midday, I have finished my monologue, and then we can have some discussions along the way. So as I said, if you forget everything today that we are going to talk about, I think what I'm trying to talk about here is paying attention to results. So, and how do we pay attention to results? By basically doing monitoring and evaluation frameworks. That's how we pay attention to results. The process of paying attention to results is through monitoring and evaluation. That's what our discussion today is all about. So what is monitoring and evaluation? I'll quickly run through this. Usually these two concepts are put together, monitoring and evaluation. But so monitoring is a systematic, meaning it's the steps you can follow. It's a long-term process that gathers information in regards to the progress made by the project. Now the keywords here is gathering information, and the other one is progress of the project that we are implementing. So there are two things here. Monitoring is about gathering information on what? On the progress of what we are doing. So that's what monitoring is about. Gathering information in regards to what we are doing. Now, progress in itself means movement from one place to another, one spot to the next, or one level to the next. So monitoring is about gathering information that can show you whether we are moving in the right direction or in the direction that we intended. So that's what monitoring is about. In fact, the word monitoring has the literal meaning. For example, how do you monitor your blood pressure? You have a machine which you subject your finger to or your hand to, and it gives you an indication of whether your pressure is going up or going down. How do you measure? How do you monitor your body weight? Some of us here would like either to become smaller or to become bigger. Now, how do you know that you are becoming smaller or becoming bigger? It's by taking your weight on a regular basis. You stand on a weighing scale to ask yourself, am I smaller? So that means last week, if I was 80 kilos and my goal is to become 30 kilos, I have to stand on a weighing scale every week to know if every week I am reducing my weight. So what is monitoring? Monitoring is simply gathering information in regards to the progress being made by the project that you are implementing. That project could be a school. That project could be microfinance, whatever project. That project could be main discipleship. But you have to gather information to know the progress that you make. Of course, the underlying assumption is that there is an intended goal. And in cornerstone, we teach that without vision, people perish. We also teach that we must always begin with an end in mind. So it is the underlying assumption is that for every project or every program, there is an intended goal. For example, if you are doing main discipleship, you are assuming that at the end of a certain period of time, maybe a year or two, that men should be able to exhibit characters of Jesus. Now, you should also define to us, how do they exhibit that? Now, that is the whole process. So if you are to, the simplest way to understand what monitoring is about is simply gathering information. And when we talk about gathering information, the misconception is that gathering information should be scientific and complex. It doesn't have to be. Gathering information could be by observation. Gathering information can be by just talking to people. Gathering information could be by listening to stories that people are giving you. Gathering information could be by maybe a piece of paper that you can call a questionnaire, etc. So the point I'm making here is that gathering information doesn't have to be complex or scientific. The most important thing is to be intentional about gathering information on the progress of the project that you are implementing. So that's what monitoring is. Get some information that tells you how you are making progress or whether you're making progress or not. Evaluation, on the other hand, is periodic. Now, monitoring is routine, constant, ongoing. But evaluation, on the other hand, is time-specific or is periodic. It happens once in a while. It can be maybe at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. And its purpose is to establish whether you are reaching your goals, whether you are getting the intended fruit. And that's why the first thing I said is that monitoring and evaluation is all about attention to results. Attention to results. What monitoring does, it helps you to know whether you are moving towards that direction. Evaluation, on the other hand, helps you to see whether you have reached that destination. So monitoring is about the process. Evaluation is about the destination or the fruit. But the two of them help you to stay focused on results. Madam Lydia, I suggest that at any point in this discussion, if anybody has a question, that we can address it. My goal is to help people understand that monitoring and evaluation is very simple, is not complex, doesn't have to be scientific, and that it is actually embedded in every aspect of our lives. So far what I have done, I have defined what monitoring is, and I said it is all about getting some information on progress. Monitoring, evaluation, on the other hand, is all about getting information on results or fruits. In fact, the other way you can look at it is that evaluation actually is when you analyze the information gathered during monitoring to establish so far the progress made. That's so far what monitoring and evaluation. And I would like to bring in some quotes here by different people about the importance of focusing on results. And one of them is Milton Friedman. He said that one of the greatest mistakes is to judge policies, programs, or projects by their intention rather than by their results. Sometimes people are articulate of what they intended to do. It is one thing to intend, it's another to achieve. So monitoring and evaluation is about establishing whether those intentions are being materialized. Most of us, when we design programs or projects, we have something we want to achieve. We have identified the problem and we want to solve it, and we are very articulate on how we are going to solve it. Now, what monitoring does is that every action that you take, you gather information to see whether it is leading you in the direction of solving that problem. And evaluation helps you to periodically ask yourself, have we solved the problem? To what extent have we solved the problem? So it's a mistake to judge your project by its intention. We were intending to help girls. Well, intentions are okay. Everybody has good intentions. Now we want to find out, after I'm implementing it for the last 1 year, how many girls have you helped? And what do you mean by helping? So that we don't just judge our projects by their intentions, but rather by their results. I also like this other one here. Chada Kocha said, we are monitoring the global companies on a daily basis, and their rating continues to be investment grade. We will take immediate action if anything goes wrong. The other way, there is the other reason, and I'm going to go into the reasons why you should monitor, but what monitoring does, that it helps you to identify when you are going into a wrong direction, to be able to change course of action, so that you don't allow a wrong thing to go on for a very long time. That's why you've had some projects, they had one mistake which was going on for a very, very long time. Maybe they were using wrong methods. Maybe there was a break in the supply chain of what they wanted. Maybe they were giving things and they were not reaching beneficiaries, but it went on for so long because there was either no or inadequate monitoring. So what monitoring helps you to do is that the moment you realize that you are off course, you fix it. Or the moment you realize that the route you are taking was not taking you where you wanted to achieve, you change course. In this illustration, and I'm hoping that everybody can see their screen, two people have embarked on a journey. They had some things in mind, but one of them was interested in monitoring and evaluation. But the other was just saying, why bother? Let's just keep going. But if they stop and gather some information on whether they are going in the right direction or not, then they can be able to make the right decision. When they realize something is wrong, they can be able to fix it. But if they just keep going, there is a crocodile waiting ahead of them. So this is what monitoring and evaluation is about. Okay, I also like this other quotation. It's again, we are still trying to demystify monitoring and evaluation. The only man who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He takes my measurements every time he sees me, while all the rest go on with their old measurements and they expect me to fit in them. So sometimes we have a project. Projects work within a context, and that context is both internal and external. The external is what we call PESTEL: political, economic, legal, environmental, technological. That is you must always be paying attention to the changes in your environment. But also there is the internal: staff, funding, etc. For example, right now, we are into a space that this kind of interaction we are having with you would not have been possible, or would not have been favored in the last 5 years. We would have to gather everybody in one room, travel for 2 days, come here so that people can gather. But now, the external environment has dictated that it's actually possible to have such an interaction without all the time and money spent like we should have done 3 years ago. So this is why we must always keep taking measurements, gather information, examine both your inside and your outside, so that you can make correct decisions continuously. In fact, half of management, most of you have started initiatives and you are managing them, but half of management is about monitoring. 50% of the role of a manager is to monitor what's going on. You can plan, you can delegate, you can put the right HR things, etc. But a big percentage of the role of a manager in any endeavor is to monitor. In other words, collect data on what's going on, so that then you can be able to advise or make appropriate decisions. Without monitoring, without evaluation, we can be busy, but when we are not productive. So why do we do monitoring and evaluation? Number one, why do we need M&E? And I'm not saying you want. Why do we need? Number one is to improve the design and implementation. You keep learning along the way. And as you keep learning, you keep adjusting. You keep adjusting so that you are most relevant in terms of achieving your results, but also in terms of using the resources that you have. You keep learning so that you can improve your project design and implementation. The other one is to demonstrate impact. Every stakeholder is interested in associating with something which has progress. People want to be part of a moving wagon, not a stationary one. But one way to demonstrate impact is by doing monitoring and evaluation, which basically is gathering some information intentionally to establish progress and to establish the fruit or result of our labor. Impact is the change that happens over time within a certain targeted population. If you cannot demonstrate that there is some change which is happening, then you cannot win the support of stakeholders. And when we talk about stakeholders, it's not just donors. Even employees, they would like to be part of something that is exciting. Even beneficiaries, they want to associate with a school or with a project which can show results. So why do we do monitoring and evaluation? Monitoring and evaluation gives us some information to demonstrate that our effort or intervention is causing some positive change, which could also be called impact. Okay. I wouldn't want to go into all of the whys, but I think those two are very important. Okay. At least you can improve the way you are doing business, but also you can demonstrate the change that you have. Okay. I want to go into the next step. Maybe this will be very interesting to you people. Lydia insinuated it earlier, made mention. For one of the best ways to raise funds and to influence policy is to demonstrate that there are some changes that you are causing as a result of your intervention. People would like to know whether by you running the microfinance, indeed, lives of women are changing. That's why we have what we call stories of most significant change that you must show. Before we started giving the loan, Mr. Mbaziira's income was 100,000 per month. But when we gave him the loan of 500,000 to inject in their business, after 3 months, his income has grown from 100,000 to 400,000 per month. Therefore, we would like to get some more money to help as many other people to change their income, because we have proof, and this is the proof that when you give somebody this kind of money, they can be able to change their lives. Now, that information, you can get it through monitoring and evaluation. And that can be a big basis for influencing policy and raising funds. For example, there has been research to show that when you educate a woman, because women are mothers, they are wives, they are sisters, they are going to, when you educate one woman, you are going to be able to transform homes, and you can easily transform a nation. There is also research which has come through monitoring and evaluation of the various money lending businesses or microfinance projects that actually women in comparison to men, they are more likely to pay back when given. Now, without monitoring and evaluation, you cannot have that information. And that means that tomorrow you're going to be able to make better decision and you're going to design a better program because you have monitoring and evaluation. Now we've talked about the why. I like to begin with the why. I want to talk about the different types of evaluations that are out there or that you should do or you can do in your project. The first one is what we call a formative evaluation. This should be done before a project has started. Okay. Sometimes we have what we call needs assessment or baseline survey. This shows where are we before we start. When you assume that this community, there is a lot of deforestation, and therefore we want to increase, we want to do education programs that can help people to plant more trees. Now you have to show us what is the extent of deforestation, what is the current forest cover, and what do you want it to be after your intervention. Now we call that a baseline survey, or you can call that a needs assessment. The simplest way to understand that is, where are we before we start? Where is the targeted population before we start? So that we can show the change that accrues because of our intervention. We call that formative evaluation. And I strongly encourage that every program, every project, every policy must be able to demonstrate where they are beginning from. Because if you don't know the beginning place, it is difficult to establish the amount of mileage covered without knowing where you started from. Needs assessment, baseline surveys, process evaluation, those are formative. We call all that formative before you start. And I encourage, if you started before doing this kind of thing, I encourage you to try and reconstruct where were people before you started. Then we have what we call summative evaluation. This is done at the end. This is done at the end. So actually we have three types of evaluation. This was a typo. We have formative, process, and summative. Formative is that at the beginning. Process is during, what is happening as we move on. And then summative is at the end. And at the end, we can do either what we call an outcome evaluation or impact evaluation. The difference between these two, outcome and impact, is basically time. One is shorter term, while the other one is longer term. Impact always happens after a longer, it is considered to happen over a longer period of time, and it is difficult to attribute impact to one intervention, but many interventions contribute towards impact, although outcome can be attributed to a single intervention. But the most important aspect to take here is that summative is at the end, formative is at the beginning, process is in between, but we need to always gather some information before we start, during the intervention, and at the end. Those are different types. Now I would like to talk about frameworks. Okay. M&E frameworks. A framework is basically like a guide. A guide. It's like the parameters within which you operate. A framework explains how a program is supposed to work by laying out the components of the initiative and the order or steps needed to achieve that desired result. Okay. It is like the boundaries within which we work. Now, for M&E, frameworks help us to identify what needs to be measured and the indicators that will guide. Okay. The M&E frameworks, it increases the understanding of the program's goals and objectives. And I would like you to use one word for that, which is intended results. and it defines the relationship between the factors that are very key to implementation. What leads to what? In fact, sometimes we use the word theory of change, which means our understanding of how change happens in regards to a specific intervention. Why are these frameworks important? They help us to understand and analyze and understand program or project dynamics. Without a framework, you'll not be able to understand the dynamics of a program or of the program or project. Of course, these frameworks, they are helpful in developing the monitoring and evaluation plan. Again, I've talked about results, and then the relationship between activities and external factors. External factors, think about PESTEL, and what we are talking about here is how will the environment affect the things that you're trying to do, and then it demonstrates how it will lead to the desired outcome. So some of the standards of an M&E plan, again, remember today we are talking about focusing on results and how do we pay attention to results by monitoring and evaluation. What is monitoring and evaluation? It's basically gathering information to establish whether we are moving towards achievement of the intended goal. What are the standards for a proper M&E plan? Utility. In other words, the information gathered must be useful to the intended user. If you get information that is too complex and cannot be used, then it's not useful. So these are the standards of an M&E plan. Feasibility, in other words, is realistic, prudent, frugal. Frugal means you can use limited resources to achieve it. Diplomatic, it cares about the feelings and interests of all stakeholders. These are the standards. When you talk about M&E plan needs to generate useful information, utility. M&E plan needs to be realistic, prudent, frugal, in other words, possible to implement. It has to be accurate. You are getting not just what you want to hear, but not just what you want to hear, but a system, M&E plan should be one that can reveal to you technically correct and up-to-date information, not just what you want to hear. One of the biggest challenges of M&E is when project managers or founders try to cook information. Now, when they do that, they rob the project of ability to learn, because they will just think about maybe who they want. They have an audience in mind that they want to impress, then they can cook up results. Now, when you do that, you will not be able to learn. But also, like Mbaziira used to say, that you can lie to some people some of the time, but you cannot lie to everybody every time. Okay, so utility, feasibility, accuracy, those are the standards. Now, resources. The resources you need for M&E to happen in your organization. Let me go back one step. The resources that you need, number one, the international standards are that it is advisable that every project or program should commit 10% of its resources towards M&E efforts. This means money, people, time. 10% of the resources should be devoted to M&E, and I earlier said that actually a big percentage of the role of a manager is monitoring. Whether it is a business, an NGO, a home, a whatever, a manager should be able to monitor. And we have demystified monitoring by saying it is simply gathering some information on how we are doing. That gathering could be through observation, through focus group discussion, doesn't have to be formal. can be informal. It doesn't have to be too scientific, but it has to be intentional, systematic, and predictable. So what are some of the resources? We said about 10% of the resources should be devoted if you can. If you don't have the money to hire an M&E person, you can just do it yourself, because it is all about gathering information and putting it together. Then there are costs related to data collection and then information dissemination. Okay. And of course, when you're starting, it is usually higher, the cost is higher, but as it continues to be embedded within the activities of the organization, then the cost can go a little bit down. The technological capacity, you need to have somebody in charge of M&E, and if the project is small, you just need you, the one running it, to dedicate some of your time towards just intentional gathering. That person should be interested. The other thing that I should say, like many things, monitoring only can work in an enabling environment. In other words, the most important people in the organization must believe that it is important, and they must allocate the time, people, and money, or at least they should be willing to use the M&E information for decision making. They should be willing to gather that information and use it in decision making. Now, when the project is still young, one person, it is within your briefcase and maybe largely in your head, you need to be the one doing that work. And as we have already seen, it is not very difficult. Now, let's go through the steps. So we defined what it is, why you should do it, the resources that are needed, and the steps in developing. Now we are going to the first thing is that the first step is really about stakeholder consultation and participation. In the past, there was an arrogance of many people thinking that knowledge is a preserve of some individuals. So one Joseph at Mbaziira wants to start a project. They will sit in their bedroom or sitting room after taking tea. They will imagine the problem of the community, and they will also imagine the solution. They will write them on a piece of paper and go to look for funding to help these helpless people. Now that is the arrogance in the 21st century. That is the arrogance of the highest order. In fact, for you to assume that you understand the problem of the people without engaging them to understand it from their perspective is not only suicidal, but it is erroneous. That's why stakeholder consultation and participation is one of the most important aspects in program design. Even when it comes to developing an M&E plan, you need to consult the relevant stakeholders. That includes your staff, but most importantly, the beneficiaries, because it is the beneficiaries who understand the success, what it means to be successful in an area, than you. For example, if your intervention is in education, you want to increase the number of girls attaining education, you can't sit in your boardroom, not bedroom, but boardroom or office, and assume that you understand what this means. But when you interact with the parents, they can tell you that actually for us, if these girls can just attain P7, they will be able to do the following. They will be able to resist early marriage, whatever, etc. So for us, that's what we would want to see. Now, when it comes to monitoring, going to school, attending class, you can't do it alone. You need the parents to give information. When these children come home, how are they engaged? Are they interested in reading? What kind of things are they reading? So the point I'm making, it's impossible for any intervention to successfully have develop a monitoring and evaluation plan and execute it if they do not involve stakeholders. That's the most important point. The second point is to translate the problem into goals or objectives. The Bible says in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the proof of things that are yet to be. In other words, in M&E, we identify a problem, but we describe it as if it has been solved. In other words, if the issue is that there are low levels of child education in our monitoring and evaluation, we shall state it in the form of the desirable outcome, which would be high levels of girls' education. Faith. Okay, so I said number one, engage stakeholders in understanding their problem and in setting how we shall monitor progress. Number two, translate the problem statement into intended results. Number three, identify the elements to be monitored. That includes inputs, resources, activities. Number four, define the indicator and identify the data source. Now, the indicator is a statement, an indicator is basically a neutral statement, which if we collect data on, we can tell whether we're moving in the opposite, we are moving in a positive or negative direction. For example, the project could be that you are running a microfinance and the overall goal is to increase household incomes among people of Kirinyi sub-county, Bukedea district. Now, the indicator for increase in income is basically what are the incomes of the people. So when you go to monitor, you just want to find out what was your income last month, what is your income this month. Then through analysis, you will tell that if last month the income was 500,000 and this month the income is 700,000, therefore there has been increase. And if the income was 500 last month and it is 400 this month, then you will say there is decrease. Therefore, indicator is a neutral statement. You just want to know what is the income. That's what you're going to be collecting data on. What is the income? And it is in analysis that you'll be able to tell whether this is increasing or reducing. The next one is determine the method that you will use. Now, the methods of data collection are many, and I mentioned them, could be observation, could just be chit-chatting, it could just be questionnaires, etc. Now, here, I wanted to illustrate on point number two. Point number two is basically translate the problem into goals and objectives, identify elements to be monitored, and define indicators. And this is a summary of those three aspects. First, what is the goal? This is the overall. Please look at this first column here of narrative summary as simply results. The lower the result, the shorter the time period. Output is short term, purpose or outcome is medium, and then the goal is basically a long term. So this is really how a logical framework looks like. It has the one side is for goals, the results that we want to achieve, the indicator, what shows. An indicator is a qualitative or quantitative statement to measure if the overall objective is being achieved. Now, I've given an example of income. Means of verification is basically the source of information. What will we get? Which information where will we collect our information? Source of verify, source of information. Could be through people, could be through district reports, could be through publications. Those are examples of means of. In other words, how do we prove that what we have seen is true or not? Then the assumption is basically the external factors to ensure that this will happen, or the existing environment or the enabling environment that must exist in order for these results to be achieved. For example, you can give people education, you pay school fees, and but if, for example, at home, the parents are not encouraging them to read, then although you are giving school fees which you thought would lead to higher education, they will not achieve it because there is no existing environment. And that's what we call assumption. Okay. The other thing to look at is responsibilities. Who is going to be in charge of collecting, analyzing, reviewing, and then developing data dissemination utilization plan. This is about using information. Many people can. Now, many people do not gather information. They don't pay attention to understanding how they are doing, except maybe when they are pressured. But what's more interesting is that there are actually other people who gather the information, but they never use it. You find the files and the files in the people's offices, but that information has never been used for decision making. So when you're doing a monitoring and evaluation plan, you need to have a data dissemination. Data dissemination means how will we share this information and how will we utilize it? Now we have to conclude here. Hierarchy of results in a project. I said we begin by the inputs. What are we putting in? Human resource, money, buildings, projectors, etc., equipment. That is input. Activities, what we do. We do trainings, we distribute money, we do advocacy. That's what we do. What do we produce? Those are the outputs. Skills are given, money is given. Outcome is a midterm change that happened because of what we have done. And then impact is a long-term change that happens. Now, how do you know that your M&E is working? How do you know that your M&E plan is working? First of all, are M&E activities progressing as planned? Are you collecting data on the day you said you'll collect data? Are we getting responses to the questions that we are answering? Or are we getting other questions that need to be asked in the process of collecting the data? Are the methods that we are using appropriate, or are they not appropriate? Are the findings being used by the stakeholders for decision making and the program improvement? So that's how we use. That's how we know that we are using that the M&E is working in the organization. My final comment would be: evaluate what you want, because what gets measured gets produced. Without paying attention to measurement, you cannot know what you're producing. And if you do not decide to know, if you do not decide to measure your weekly weight loss, you cannot be able to intentionally lose weight as you intended. If you cannot measure how many people are changing, how many people's incomes are changing in the community every month or every year, then that project that you are implementing is just making you busy, but it has no proof. If you cannot demonstrate how many girls are attaining secondary school education, but you are just pouring money, what you're doing is wasted of time. Evaluate what you want, because what gets measured gets produced. Madam Lydia, I beg to end here and maybe get some questions.
Wow. Can we give this professor a hand clap, especially on your gadgets? since we really can't clap with our hands. Thank you so much, Mr. Mbaziira. I personally have been refreshed. Again, I've picked out so many things that I have learned. And I want to believe that this session has been relevant for all of us. Right now, I am getting some comments from the chat here. We really needed this from Humility Leadership Network. Praying this continues a lot being appreciated here. Thank you very much, Uncle Josephat. A great session. Thanks, Josephat, for the presentation. So I think that we agree that it's been a great session, but away from it being a great session, I think M&E is something that we really need if we are going to really be impactful in this work, not really just for the donors, but for us to improve our work, as Joseph has already mentioned. So most organizations like to do M&E for their donors, but I would like us to just develop a culture to do M&E for us to improve, continuously improve our work and develop. So right now, before I allow people to make comments, I want to ask that we are actually going to practice doing an M&E plan, like each one of us on this call. Well, that's if you're really interested, because one thing I know is that for M&E, it is really a practical session. So if you just go out of this session and there's nothing you do about it, believe me, you're going to forget. But I would love for you to just come up and draw like, come up with an M&E plan. Joseph has reliably told me that he's willing to help you go through this. And Augusta as well also noted that if this work, if you don't practice, it will actually be hard for you. So Joseph has said is available to help with a consultation in the next 1 week if you go ahead and draw a monitoring and evaluation plan for your work. I don't know, Joseph, if they should reach you by email or, yeah, maybe if you could share your email in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Lydia. I'm going to, first of all, I like what you have observed and Gust has observed. This is not a theoretical thing you can just say, now I have added another skill. It's for implementation and it's very, very easy. It's very, very easy. It's actually easier than you think. So what we are going to do, you just go through your project, and I have some simplified information about doing a logical framework, which I'm going to share with you. I have another small handout on just explaining what is monitoring and evaluation. Just in addition to what we have done, I'm going to share those two, and then you can just draw your M&E plan, and you can share it with me on my email, and I can give you some feedback, and then we can be able to exchange. We can even do another. I'm willing to do a one-on-one on video like this on Zoom to just make you run through it. But I can tell you that it's very, very, very simple. It is something that we must do, and we must incorporate not only in our work, but in all our lives. I would like to give one example, last example, Lydia. I had about maybe 5 years ago, I had a very difficult challenge of knowing whether I am productive at work or not in a day. So what I did, I just before the beginning of that day or the week, I still do that up to today. I list all the things that I want to do. And after I list them, I rank them with a number in order of priority. Which one should I do first? Which one should I do? But of course, guided by what I want to achieve that day or that week. And then I rank them. This need to come first. And then I have a book. I always have a book with me. Like right now, this one I'm using. Now, at the end of the day, I mean, everything that I do, I tick. Everything that I do, I tick. Now, at the end of the day, I look at the things that I have done, I tick them. Those that I have not done, I put crosses. At the end of the week, I look at every single day how many items did I want to do and how many did I do? And then I start asking myself the question, why? And then I give myself a mark. If I did all of them, I give myself, if there were 20, I say 20 out of 20. If I only did 5, I put 5 out of 20. Then at the end of the week, I put I measure myself and I multiply it by 100. And I can say that this week I performed at 50%. And then I ask myself the reasons why I was not able to do those things that I thought I would do, but I did not do. Now, I've just described for you an M&E plan for an individual. Now, if you are thinking of complex scientific things, what I've just described for you is my personal M&E. So it has helped me actually to improve on my productivity. So then I can say that on Wednesday, I spent so much time in Kabos, or there were so many people who came. So there are times when I say, now, let me hide myself maybe in a restaurant first before I go to the office. Because when I reach office, maybe many people will come and we will have to talk, and then I will not be able to do this. There are some things that have been so behind on that I've had to hide myself. I've had to hide myself maybe for a day or two to do them. But how do I know? Because I have a personal system that I've put in place to I don't know if people can see, like there is if you see on the list here, these things that you see ticked are the things that I wanted to do. That was last week, that was 2 weeks ago. Then there is this other one here, that was another week. Then there is this other one here, that is another week. There are ticks, there are crosses, and there are comments. This is my M&E work plan. So if you are thinking of a computer program or some big sheet of paper to do, monitoring and evaluation is the simplest thing. It is a life skill. It has to be embedded in the life of everybody. You cannot measure, you cannot be able to tell whether you're making progress or not if you're not intentional. I think the most important thing is intentionality. So Lydia, I'm willing to work with everybody here. It doesn't have to be complex. It has to be very simple to be used. Even somebody who doesn't know English can do monitoring and evaluation. Somebody who doesn't know how to read and to write and doesn't know computer can do monitoring and evaluation if they are interested.
Wow, wow, wow. Very impressive. Indeed, you have gathered and collected information about yourself. Okay, so I have some questions for you in the chat here. Maybe let me first go through those in the chat, then I'll give people a chance to ask. Frank Sakalani is asking, what are the common tools used for monitoring, and is there any plan to have another session for those tools? That's from Frank. Vicky says, are there methods of data collection? How about monitoring tools?
Lydia, I am happy to respond on those ones very quickly. There are so many tools out there. Some complex, some simple. And I don't want to bother you by explaining to you complex things. For example, there is a tool called Open Data Kit. There's another method called outcome harvesting. But of what use would those things be if I explained them to you here with a lot of English and quotations, if you can't actually just begin with the simplest ones? The simplest ones that you need is a book and a pen, and you need to just understand what is it that you need to. I think the most important thing, Lydia, and all our friends here on this group, is to articulate intended results. Once you can articulate intended results in the short run, medium run, and long term, you are halfway the journey. Articulate results, and I was encouraging that it is better to articulate those with some stakeholders, so that you don't assume that you are the one who knows their problem. You was going to Kampala, for them they're in the village, therefore you are the one who has understood everything about their lives, and therefore you should come and impose your solutions to them. They may not work. So I think if you can get a few people and try to guide the discussion so you understand what needs to be done. Once that one is done, once the results have been articulated, what do you want to achieve, the why, methods, those are very simple things. You can use what you have. Tools, in fact, Lydia, I am not willing to do another session on discussing latest advanced tools and methodologies, and it is not useful. It's just accumulation of knowledge. What I am willing to do is to first work with anyone willing on how to implement this in their work with whatever they have. Once we have practiced a bit, then we can go to the next level of maybe what are the new things. How can you use your phone? How can you use Google Sheets? How can you use, but before you use Google Sheets, I would want us to use the paper and pen.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Mbaziira, for making this very clear. Please, if you have a question and you'd like to make a comment, you can raise your hand. Meanwhile, we have some chats going on. Sarah Tukashaba says you are a very good teacher. Samuel says very impressive. Gasta says if they are interested, I think he wanted to say those people, like M&E can be easy if you are really interested. And Caleb was just affirming the word. Peter Emau said, thanks so much, my senior. Please, my request is that on top of the 2 documents you promised to avail, would you add the presentation notes of today? Yeah, that's another comment. But I also want to say that I've been recording this session, and maybe if you didn't understand very well after here, after it has converted to my laptop, I'll put it on the Advanced Leadership YouTube and share a link with each one of you so you can go through the session again as you develop the plan. Thank you so much. Joe says, Eluk Michael says, I think the challenge is that people have made M&E so complex that you can just fear to start. So please, people, don't fear to start. That's what we've been doing here. Joe says, thanks for the knowledge, man. Yeah, I think Joe is from Tanzania. Sarah Upendo says, thank you so much. It's been good learning. Glad I joined in. Thanks, Joseph, for making it appear so easy. So is there, thank you so much, everyone in the chat. Is there anyone else who wants to make a comment, or maybe how you're practicing the M&E in your project? Maybe you could also share an experience. We have people like Julius Peter here, Sarah Tukashaba, our elders, Lydia, Naluja, Gasta, please, you can make a comment. Oh yes, Jimmy, your hand is raised.
Okay, thank you, Lydia. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from the Cornerstone family.
Good afternoon, Jimmy.
I want to thank my elder, Mbaziira, for this wonderful sharing. I am picking one thing from him that I also want to give a testimony about. For starters, I'm Jimmy Mayanja. I'm a graduate of Cornerstone Leadership Academy Boys, Uganda, 2003-2004. I'm currently working with the Infectious Diseases Institute, IDI, at the College of Health Sciences of Makerere University. I am an OVC program specialist there now. So I want to share an experience that for starters, we thought that M&E is very complex. Why did we think that it is very complex? Because we based all our understanding on those complex tools and the systems that have been put in place by scholars. So for us who are allergic to such complex issues, then it put us off. But like Joseph has put it, simple. I worked with our teams. I was like, you guys, not every time we shall have to wait for the M&E department to guide us on what you have to do in this side of programs. I just had to work with the procurement side. We bought just blue books, those black books. I gave out blue books to all our officers in all the districts that I'm manning. I have 10 districts that I'm overseeing. And I was just like, you just get to know your target. This is my target for this quarter. I'm meant to serve these beneficiaries. Then you break them in 2 months, in 2 weeks. Now, whoever you serve, you tick off, I've served this one, I've served this one. So before even the quarter ends, before you go to M&E to ask what is in the system, you yourself already know what you have done and you are clear about it. In fact, one day I challenged the team of Arua that actually it is not M&E to give you what you have done. It is you actually who feeds M&E side, because what they put in the system comes from you. So it is like you have the primary data that they are basing on, not you to base on them, okay? So at the end of the day, our work has become easy on the programs side, that now guys can easily monitor themselves. They base on what they have achieved, following the raw data they have, before even going to M&E to give them what is in the system, because what is in the system comes from them. So conclusively, because time is going, I want to say that, like Joseph has put it, that we don't need to look at M&E as a very complex subject matter. The only thing that makes it complex is that we always base so much on the systems and the tools and what, yes, they are there. But the bottom line is, how do you understand it and how do you do it in a simplistic manner? Then your work becomes easy at all levels of your management in whatever project you are doing. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Thank you so much. As I prepare to receive another person, I also want to make an announcement of what is coming up with at ALI. We have last year, we started, we prototyped or piloted out an accelerator. And I know that I've shared the call for participation with the country coordinators and maybe departmental coordinators. So if you are interested, please reach out to maybe Said, Elisante, and all the other coordinators. But really, it's an exciting program where there is a lot of connection, but also a lot of learning. And during the accelerator, you'll be able to learn about on topics such as pitching, fundraising, human resource management, self-awareness and personal mission, sustainability, faith and social entrepreneurship, telling your story, communication and visibility, and so many others. But the value you'll get is the connection. And we have some of the people here that have gone through the accelerator, and I think they can attest that it's really a good space for you to be in. So the deadline for submission of application is on 7th of May. And please, once again, if you are interested in the accelerator, reach out to Said, Elisante, and departmental heads in Uganda. You are welcome to join in. If you're based in Rwanda and Tanzania, we'll be in touch. Also, we have the ALI grant, impact grant, which is coming up, which I think it will happen in May, maybe end of May. And for this one, because we are focusing on collaboration, would like that you team up in a group and you work together, because we want you to work together. That's the goal of the grant. So if you can team together, write a proposal. I will be giving out a call again in that regard to see which areas we shall be interested in. I think that would be so good. Do we have any other questions or comments? We are coming to the close of our meeting. Yeah.
I'd also like to mention, Lydia, that I have shared all the 3 documents I talked about. They are in your inbox.
Okay.
So you can forward it to the brethren as soon as you can.
Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, have missed your announcements, Lydia. Ambrose, I have been saying that last year we piloted out what we call an accelerator. And an accelerator really is learning which happens in a period, a framed period of time. So for the accelerator for ALI, it happened for 3 months last year, but this year, because it's going to be hybrid, it might happen for 6 months. And so if you are in social entrepreneurship and you've really not done so much in this field, it would be important for you to get into this accelerator because it's handling topics like pitching, fundraising, human resource management, self-awareness and personal mission, sustainability, faith and social entrepreneurship, telling your story, communication and visibility. Again, if that's something that you are interested in, you can reach out to me and I give you the details. The deadline for application is 7th May. Yeah. Thank you so much. If there are no more questions, I'd like that we turn on our video and we take a group photo because I also have to do monitoring and evaluation. So please turn on your video so that we can take a group photo. But thank you so much for being here today. Good. And if you're not able, that will still be okay.
I hope I'm seen and you can take my smile.
Michael, we can see you. Good. Good. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Please make sure you smile. Professor, smile. Make sure you are smiling. We need you. Thank you so much. I have finished. Thank you so much, friends. I'll be sharing the resources that the professor shared, and thank you very much for being on this call. Let's keep in touch with our coordinators, and thank you for being here once again. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.